Hey everyone, and welcome to Ramblin' Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and/or their cultural relevance. My name's Christian, and this is Batman in Detective Comics number 31. Once again, of course, by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Now, this issue doesn't originally have a title, although it has been since titled to Batman versus the Vampire, but many of you may also be more familiar with it as Batman and the Mad Monk. In 2006, Matt Wagner would readapt this tale into a modern comic. Sorry, yes, 2006. Into a modern comic in which it was Batman versus the Mad Monk, which was I believe, a six-issue series that later got turned into a whole trade paperback collection as well. But the original story for that comic, if you're familiar with it, started here, and we're going to take a look at that here uh, as we get into it. So without further ado, let's do just that. We open with a panel where we have Batman just kind of, going through the city, and we have two important things here. One, we have the mention that this is, in fact, New York, not Gotham. It wouldn't be called Gotham until later in the issues, but right now, this is called Batman's in New York. One thing I really want to point out here, though, is I've mentioned before how much I hate when it's nighttime and yet it looks broad daylight. This is very nice. We have a purple sky as opposed to a purplish pinkish sky as opposed to a regular blue sky. Now you could say as well that okay, well, maybe the sun's setting or the moon's just rising or something of that nature, and that could be possible, but that's not really what's important here, I would say. What is important is that it looks a hell of a lot better than just a regular blue sky. Batman comes across a seemingly hypnotized woman attempting to kill a frightened man as he swoops in and saves the man at the last minute. Well, he doesn't really swoop in, he just catches him by his rope and pulls him up. Here we're actually introduced to as Batman, well, the narrator explains, and Batman kind of thinks to himself, this is Julie, Bruce Wayne's fiance. Now, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the fact that Batman doesn't really have like a steady love interest. Nowadays, the closest to that would probably be Catwoman, of course, in the DCAU. It was Wonder Woman to an extent. I believe in the Nolan verse, it was oh shit, I don't remember her name, but it later became Catwoman. Um, he had a few different reporter girlfriends, I think, in the Burton movies, but Batman doesn't normally have a girlfriend or a love interest or anything like that. And I do think that the Mad Monk six-issue series I mentioned before by Wagner does a really good job extrapolating on this idea and kind of showing why Batman doesn't have a love interest. Of course, we see this as well in the concept of like Batman having a love interest, having even a fiance at first in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm as well. But these are all adaptations and things we'll get to way down later down the line of the Batman mythos. It all started here, though, with the introduction of Julie. So we have this panel where Batman snaps Julie out of it, and he takes her back home. And I just find this panel hilarious because as he's driving the not Batmobile once again, he just has this very stern look on his face that to me, it's kind of like if when you're like driving your friend back from being drunk at a party and you're just like, can't believe I'm putting up with this shit. I'm gonna get you home. You're gonna be fine, but like, oh my god, you're pissing me off. Like that's just the vibe I get from here. As she's asking him, she's like, "What's going on? Like, why won't you tell me anything?" And he's not saying anything because he, I'm sure, wants to protect his secret identity. He's also, I mean, God, imagine like seeing the person you're in love with engaged to in Bruce's case here, about to murder somebody. Like, what do you do? How do you take that? How do you handle that, right? So he just simply tells her once he finally gets her back home, look, explain everything to your fiance, Bruce Wayne. I'm out of here. Peace. So Julie does just that. She explains the situation to Bruce, and he's like, oh God, well, you know, suppose you did kill someone. We gotta see someone about this. Let's go visit. They call him Dr. Trent, who I am imagining must be a psychiatrist of some sort. And he talks to them about hypnotism and stuff, and basically tells them, look, you're stressed out, and my diagnosis to you is an ocean voyage, which a cruise. He specifically wants them to go to Hungary, Paris, and mentions that Hungary is the land of history and werewolves. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of werewolves. They're my favorite mythological creature, if you will. But I don't think it's really where we want to go and think about, especially for a vacation to de-stress, if you will. And they even mentioned, like, I don't really like the comment about werewolves, but in any case, yeah, vacation might actually do us some good. So let's go. Before they depart on their vacation, we have this moment where Bruce is, thinking about the whole thing, contemplating how would Julie react to know that Bruce and Batman are one and the same? How can I, you know, have a relationship with her and have the secret identity? Do I share this with her? Like, what do I do? A very common thing that superheroes deal with. Which, look, my stance on the matter is simply, if you're a superhero, I really like the way that Miles Morales handles it, where basically, if you are going to, if you're a superhero, you got to tell the people close to you. Now, of course, you want to make sure you can trust them first, but like, if you're seriously dating someone and wanting to marry them or what have you, maybe at that point it's time to let them know your secret identity. Your family, your really close friends, you should absolutely let them know. I think there's no reason for all of this like contrived hiding of the secret identity that happens so often in many comics and other TV shows, movies, video games, all kind of stuff with superheroes. It's just so unnecessary. But here we have the introduction of the Bat Gyro, as Bruce calls it, which is essentially the Batcopter. And you know, this is it does mention how this is in a hangar all to himself. Not quite the Bat Cave. We'll get there later. But more importantly, we have the long-awaited introduction of the one, the only, the iconic Batarang. I know it doesn't really look like much here, but come on, this is the Batarang. This is Batman's main weapon, the main thing that he uses. It's like this and his grappling hook are his main thing. And we're going to see the Batarang actually come into play and be very important later. But for the time being, it's the Batarang. We finally have it. Again, we're building up all of these important aspects of Batman's character that are so crucial to him even to this day. Now, as Batman flies over the city, people freak out, understandably so, because they think a giant bat's flying over them, when in actuality it's just Batman in his Batarang. Batman meets Julie on the cruise as Batman, and she explains the situation to him after asking him about it. And I didn't pick up on it until rereading it now, but I realized I don't think it was intended as a couple vacation for Bruce and Julie to go together. I think it was intended for her to go on this vacation all by herself to clear her head and things of that nature, which does make sense. But either way, I didn't realize that until I reread it, and here we are. But remember, I mentioned we're already seeing how iconic this Batarang is, and we're already getting some great use out of it as the monk shows up and Batman attacks him with what else but the Batarang. Now, we do have that, the monk ducks and avoids it, and Batman catches it. So again, a common thing that we see where, how often do we see where Batman will throw a Batarang and, someone will avoid it. Oftentimes they'll hit something behind them, and, you'll have the classic, like, oh, you missed. Wasn't aiming for it, that kind of thing, right? But, in this case, it's just as simple. Threw the Batarang, dodged it, caught it. It's again very rudimentary examples of stuff here, but in any case, they make it to Paris, and Batman finds Julie's room. This is one of the things that again made me think, okay, maybe they're not here together. Now, it was very common back in these days for a long time, even up until like I'm not really sure when it ended, but it used to be common back in like olden days, if you will, for couples, even unless they were married, to not have the same room together. This is largely because the idea of like sleeping together, both literally and just, sex outside of marriage was very much frowned upon and things of that nature. So, oftentimes couples would be separate. I think in the show I Love Lucy, they even slept in separate beds, which is like awful to me, but I mean, I kind of get it if you want the bed to yourself, like, whatever, right? You do you. But either way, as Batman finds him, he's, as the comic says, he's greeted with a warm reception. We have this, I can only think to describe it as this, like, gorilla type creature who, captures him and, is able to bring him back to the monk where Batman's put in a net. This concept of the creature, if I remember and everything, is expanded upon much more than in the 2006 Batman and the Mad Monk comic series. But originally here, it's just a creature that shows up very briefly. But it is really interesting to see how things like that will be expanded upon, and this does exist later in things as well. But we'll get to those things later. By the way, I hope I don't know if you guys can realize I've noticed that I say "in any case" a lot, and I'm trying to stop saying that so much because like I've gone back looking through like other videos that I've done in this style, and as I'm like editing them and stuff and uploading them, and I notice I say "in any case," and I'm like, oh shit, let me try to not do that so much. So I'm trying not to, but it's tough. So the monk has Batman in a netted cage as he pulls a lever, lowering him into a den of snakes to, of course, kill him. Now, once again, we're going to see some great use of the Batarang here as Batman throws it, flipping the switch up, breaking a chandelier, and causing glass to fall for him to catch and use to cut the ropes. Now, I think that with how often we've already seen the Batarang being used thus far, when it was created, they knew what they were doing. They knew that they had something great on their hands, and this was going to be Batman's primary weapon. There's no way, with just how often they've been using it, it's been, it's they must have known. As the monk attempts to lower Batman into the den of snakes again, he uses the glass shard to quickly cut the rope here and get out with mere seconds to spare. I really like this moment because I want to show this close-up drawing of the monk here and how just sadistic and crazy he looks, and also just the moment of Batman cutting the rope and getting out here. It's pretty cool action shot, pretty cool moment. But Batman chases the Mad Monk into a cage, yet another cage, this one not a net, but like an actual steel cage, as he's met face to face with the gorilla again. But he's able to use the rope that lowered him in order to get out, and he also notices a guard who's about to shoot him, and yet once again, the Batarang is used to take him out. I'm telling you, once they created this Batarang, they knew, whether it be Bill Finger or Bob Kane, I'm not sure which of the ones would have been responsible for actually the creation and implementation of the Batarang, but they knew, whoever it was, they really knew they had something great on their hands with this. Batman then hops back in his plane, and as Batman escapes, he finds a car speeding down toward. The comic says that it's headed toward Hungary, but I looked it up on a map, and Hungary is not exactly right next to Paris, so I mean, really, I guess it's just going east, but it's a bit of a stretch to say it's going directly to Hungary. In any case, we have this cool shot where we have the shadow of the bat plane following the car, and again, it's just one of those iconic imagery things where I just think this kind of thing's really cool. Batman attempts to stop the car by throwing a gas pellet into it. Again, another use of the gas pellet, and the driver falls asleep, crashing into a tree. Batman finds that the driver was Julie and decides to save her, as he says. Exactly what he's doing, I'm not entirely sure, because the comic itself just says Batman plans vengeance and that then he's off to Hungary, which, okay, and we do have a thing after that says, what will become of everything here of Julie. Why does the monk want Julie? And I will let you know, I am reading this and doing this video, this rambling review before I read the next part. I'm doing like one right after the other, so it's been a while since I've actually read part two of this, but so I don't really remember, and I guess we'll find out together. But I do want to mention something else here. We have this shot where Batman has Julie with him, and we see him in the bat plane and everything, and he just he remarks, "Poor kid." Something that I've noticed in a lot of early comics is characters will refer to fully grown women as kid. I don't. If you know that was a thing back then, let me know in the comments down below. It's not really something I'm familiar with. It's kind of like how in Casablanca, when the main character says, "Here's looking at you, kid," to the girl that he's with, which is a fully grown woman, and it's like, I don't know, I don't get it. I looked it up, and apparently it's like it was done in either a disrespectful or patronizing way. And I guess you could say this is patronizing, but it's not real. I mean, because he's like, poor kid, poor girl. Like, I don't know. I guess it's not much different than saying poor girl, but I don't know. Maybe it's just like a language evolution thing that seems a bit weird now. But in any case, I'm interested as to what you guys have to say or think about that. And speaking of, language and stuff like that, again, I am trying to not say in any case so much, but we'll see what happens with that. As always, though, this issue, though, I quite liked it. This does set up as we're going to go into part two of this story here, and I guess this is our first real two-parter because the Doctor Death one, part one of Doctor Death, if you will, didn't end on a cliffhanger. Batman just watched the guy burn to death. But in this case, we do have more of a cliffhanger. Um, we have this thing where we don't know what's up with Julie. We don't know why the monk wants her. And we don't really know what's happening with any of this, but we're just continuing the story. What I think is really interesting, though, really cool with all this is, of course, we had finally the introduction of the Batwing, or excuse me, the Batarang, the Batwing too, although it was just called the Bat Plane. But what did they call it? The Bat Cop? It wasn't the Bat Copter. It was the Bat. Wasn't the Bat Scythe? I don't remember. It was the Bat something. They didn't call it the Bat Copter. Gyro. We had the Bat Gyro, which is basically the Bat Copter. We did have the Bat Wing, the Bat Plane. I'm not entirely sure if the Bat Gyro was the same as the Bat Plane, because the Bat Plane was referred to as the Bat Plane later, so like separately. I don't know. Either way, though, all of this, I think was really good. Again, we saw even with the Batarang how much use it's gotten just in one small issue, and how we know, being familiar with the Batman franchise and how things go from here, how iconic and how much use that Batarang is going to get moving forward. And it's just really incredible to see how it started here. I'm telling you, once they created that, they knew this was going to be Batman's like main thing, because they did not hesitate to use it every chance they got, even throughout this. But yeah, no, I did quite like the issue, and I'm looking forward to reading the second one again and doing a review of that one as well. So, as always, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like. And if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.